And this is a post from the underwear bomber, who wrote in an online forum prior to his act. I do not have a friend. I have no one to speak to, no one to consult, no one to support me. I feel depressed and lonely. I do not know what to do. Now, this from a man who had more than 12 siblings. Then, of course, I had promised myself not to talk about what happened in Boston because I feel that we don't know enough. But this has been reported in enough places that I believe this to be true, that one of actually the lead person in the Boston incident said, I don't have a single American friend and I don't understand them. There was a study. Now, this is one of the few instances where an actual data set has been collected from people, and not experts who talk to other experts and then come up with expert opinions. This is data collected in England, what they did was they had interviewed the people who were part of this extreme group. There's a history with this group. There's this man, Omar Bakri Muhammad, who became far too radicalized even for Hizb ut-Tahrir, so he got discharged from there and he formed his own little wing. He got expelled from Saudi Arabia. But anyway, this is real data where they interviewed people as they went about their daily business. And this is probably the closest that we have to an actual model. Okay, there are other models out there, but this is the model that is actually based on real people, not somebody's theoretical assumptions. The first important thing is the cognitive opening. How do you get somebody? And as I go down these arrows, what you recognize is this is incredibly familiar, because this is all something we already know from people who join cults. So this is data from the 50s and 60s that has been refashioned in modern day PowerPoint, and it's exactly the same thing. So you have to have that cognitive opening, How do you get somebody to come in? Because to be part of Mohajeroun is a pretty labor-intensive, time-intensive endeavor. You have to be in so many classes, and you effectively have to give up your communications with your family because you're too busy doing this. You have to do what's called dawa, which is, hand out flyers and so forth. So it's not easy to do. So how do you get into this? And so the cognitive opening could come, for example, if somebody had a personal crisis, somebody lost a job, for example, or it could be a communal crisis. Look what's happening in Pakistan. Look how horrible that is. And so as these young men get frustrated, they find various solutions. And when they seek religion, that's what they find. Not the religion as we know it for 1400 years, but religion as taught to them by Al-Mohajeroun. And that's when the frame alignment would happen. So, I know how you feel because I feel exactly the same way. And if we use this brand of religion, this would solve everything because, there will be clean water, everybody would be employed, there'll be no problems. And so then you align with the group. And again, if you think of cults, that's exactly what would happen. And then finally, the socializing and the indoctrination. And because of how they had to be together for all these, what they call halaqas or circles of study, these people would start their halaqa at 6 p.m. Sometimes they would go until 5 a.m. So, of course, you don't have outside influence because you're constantly with a group. And if anybody has ever been to a summer camp, you stay there like for maybe 1 week, and you think the other summer camp, those are the bad people, they're the evil people, because our summer camp is the right one. So this can happen easily to any of us. Again, I've tried to focus just on real data. I've tried to stay away from theoretical frameworks based on people's opinion. This is from my colleague, Stephen Wine. He and I worked together on the committee that I just mentioned to you. He went into the community in Minnesota. Somali community, as you know, there's a large presence in Minnesota. These are people who first immigrated from Somalia in times of war as refugees, and then a lot of them did a secondary migration where they may have landed, I don't know, maybe New York City, and then from there they would go to Minnesota to be part of that larger group. And so when they go to that secondary place, and I know there's somebody here knows a lot about how refugee dollars flow, those dollars don't follow them. So they basically go there without the support that refugees would typically get on the port of landing. So again, poverty is rife, crime is rife. It is not a fun place to be in that, what unfortunately has been called the ghetto in Minnesota. And this is what he discovered: youth's unaccountable time and unobserved spaces. And just to sort of give you a background, am I going too far over time limit? I'm good? Okay, thank you. The reason why he was asked to come and study that community was because, if people remember, there was a bunch of Somali kids who left and went to join Al-Shabaab. And these were Somali kids who were like, the best and the brightest, the pre-med student. These were not, people on the margins. And it surprised everybody. And actually it was, once again, as typically happens, it was the community, the concerned parents who said, something is not right, where have these kids gone? And then it was discovered. So again, that's why Dr. Wine went in to try and figure out through structured interviews. So youth's unaccountable time. So, what do? So your father is either absent, or if he's present, he's probably working 2 jobs. Mom has very little in common with their English-speaking children. A lot of them, the parents, are themselves suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. So they are not as adequately able to enjoy life with their kids, do things with their kids as many other parents would. So there are these hours spent either at, in front of TV, or you go to these gathering places where other young people were getting together, and then while they're there, that's when trouble starts. Now this, as you may recognize, again, this is not rocket science, okay? What we saw earlier, typical information that we already know from cults. What we see here, kids at risk, okay? Anybody who knows about inner city kids at risk and where are the areas where they are most vulnerable will recognize everything that's happening here. The perceived social legitimacy of violent extremism. So they watch these TV channels where, they are seeing horrible things happening. Their parents have clearly been unable to stand all the violence in their native lands that they come from. And so it is for a young man, it's very important to feel proud of who you are, to be proud of the group that you belong to. And that doesn't happen when this is your background. And then the contact with recruiters or associates happen. So now this is, again, data. This is by somebody who looked at about 2,000 foreign fighters who came to Iraq. Now these are people who left their homelands to come to Iraq to fight the Americans. And this is what we know. What we know about foreign fighters as not having these characteristics, okay? They're not mentally ill from a major mental illness as we understand them. So this is not somebody with severe bipolar disorder who decided in mania to come join something. No. These, maybe you could say that they're probably sociopaths or antisocial, and I've been told antisocial has been removed now. So today is going to be the last presentation where I'll use that. They are not all poor, and they're not all rich. There is a variation in where they come from. They don't have much knowledge of the religion, and that is why it's easy for anybody to guide them to the kind of religion that they want them to be guided to. These are not people who are scholars or people who have been taught very well where they're coming from. It takes really a lot to say, you know what, I'm going to be cannon fodder for people, for a country I don't understand. Sometimes I don't even speak that language, and I'm going to just go and do that. And in order to do that, you really, truly have to, and I hate to use that old term, brainwash, but you have to be brainwashed. Now, this is an important concept. there's not like a recruiter sitting somewhere in Afghanistan with all these like huge, screens all around him saying, I'm going to get him and I'm going to get him. No, it's not a recruitment process. It's more of an enlistment. These people, they follow a bunch of guys. This guy is doing this. Now, whether the bunch of guys are part of their community, as happened in the Somali example, or if they are an online community. But, and that's normal young man behavior. They want to follow a bunch of guys. And that's actually a very important thing to remember, because that will help us determine what to do for interventions. And again, going with the same data set, these are the categories of people we get. So I told you earlier what they were not. Now I'm going to tell you what they are. Some of them are revenge seekers. They're angry at the society, often the father. A lot of them are very angry at father. In the traditional society, the father is, has the final word on everything and truly commands and demands respect, whether he deserves it or not. So a lot of these young men were angry at their fathers. And then there were the status seeker. They usually came from the West. Okay, somebody who's, let's say, leaving from Hartford to do this kind of dastardly deed is not going to say, my government is oppressing me and I don't have education and I don't have clean water. He's more likely to be seeking that status. Identity seeker. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the group that you want to belong to. So looking for a place to belong. The thrill seeker. And again, looking for adventure, seeing, what is out there. This is a very busy slide. I'm not going to go over that. Actually, Dr. Anwar already covered, the number of people who have been hurt by terrorism or Muslim terrorism or Islamist terrorism, however you say it. So I just put that in there, and I'm going to just move forward with, from this slide. Now, what Dr. Anwar's slides show was that there's something that's preventing people from going out there and blowing things up. If there are 3 to 7 million Muslims here, what is it that is preventing this popular uprising saying, you are now at war with 2 Islamic countries and how dare you, and let's all just go and blow ourselves up. And because there are points of resilience in the Muslim community. There's always a public and private denunciation of violence. And that's very important to remember, because if you watch a certain news channel, the first thing most experts would say is, how come the Muslims are not out there denouncing it? Well, yes, they are. They are denouncing them in their Friday addresses in mosques. They're denouncing them in their dinners, in their getting-togethers. They are denouncing that at a national level. All national organizations, this is almost like a pattern. As soon as something happened, all Muslim national organizations put out statements publicly denouncing it. And then within an hour or so, there are experts on the TV saying, how come Muslims are not denouncing it? Self-policing. Many of these plots have been aborted by, again, watchful Muslims. And as we found out when I was mentioning the California example, sometimes they find out that this was a plan by the government. But again, people worry about this because, when these big things happen, it hurts each one of us. And in some ways, and not in any way to somehow claim the suffering any more than anybody else in this room, it hurts the Muslims at 2 levels. It hurts them, of course, in a way that it hurts everybody in this room, but it hurts them because somebody has used the name of the religion that they are following to do that. Political engagement, that is happening more in the Muslim community. Just last weekend, last weekend, for example, we, and at the community center that I am a member of or a part of, we had cans and recyclable drives by the Girl Scouts, Troop 2204, by the way, who created this ribbon.